centres are being seized, June 2026. Not by an invading army, not by some foreign power, but by mobs of masked teenagers and balaclava-clad men who are storming high streets, looting shops in broad daylight, burning homes, and vanishing before police can even arrive. And while ordinary families barricade themselves inside supermarkets, the man who promised to restore order, Sir Keir Starmer, is nowhere to be found on the one thing that actually matters: a plan. In a single Easter week, hundreds of balaclava-wearing youths descended on Clapham in South London, not once, but twice in the space of days. Witnesses described 200 to 300 teenagers, many in masks, screaming and sprinting up the high street while shoppers were locked inside stores for their own safety. This isn't a one-off. It's a pattern spreading city to city, organised on TikTok, and the people in charge have no answer for it. Masked, anonymous, untouchable. That's what's walking through Britain's town centres right now, while the government talks about everything except how to stop it. But real quick, before we show you exactly how organised and how fast this is spreading, let's be honest with each other. The mainstream press will tell you these are just kids being kids and isolated incidents, because admitting that mobs can now seize a London high street on demand would mean admitting the state has lost control of the streets. That's why we built British Front Media, to tell you what they won't. If you want the unfiltered truth about Britain's collapse, subscribe now. Your subscription is what keeps this channel alive and independent. Reason number 1. The mobs are now summoned in seconds, and the high street can't defend itself. On the 28th, and again on the 31st of March 2026, Clapham High Street descended into what locals literally called a war zone. Crowds of teenagers, many wearing balaclavas, poured out of Clapham Common and into the shops. A security guard at a Sainsbury's described having to lock terrified shoppers inside the store until police could escort them out. M&S, McDonald's and Sainsbury's were all forced to shut their doors before closing time. Fires burned on the Common. And here's the detail that tells you everything about the scale of the response needed. Around 100 officers were deployed, and 4 of them were assaulted, 1 taken to hospital. 3 girls were arrested, 2 of them just 13 years old. Now sit with what that actually means. A single TikTok post, a caption, a meeting point, and within hours a couple of 100 masked teenagers can shut down one of London's busiest shopping streets. The Met itself admitted these gatherings are a growing challenge across the capital. This is the new reality. The high street is no longer something the state can guarantee is safe. It can be seized, on a whim, by a crowd that didn't exist that morning. Reason number 2, it is spreading, exactly as the experts warned, and nobody is stopping the contagion. Clapham was not the end, it was the template. Within weeks, hundreds of balaclava-clad youths descended on Milton Keynes for what was advertised online as an Easter egg hunt, forcing police into a standoff outside the Midsummer Place shopping centre and triggering a dispersal order. The same trend hit Birmingham, where crowds of teenagers in black and balaclavas swept through the city as part of the viral link-up craze. This is not new behaviour either. Years ago, social media calls to raid a sporting goods shop on Oxford Street openly listed the dress code as a balaclava and gloves. A former Scotland Yard detective called the spread of these link-ups an all-too-predictable contagion and warned it traces straight back to the day the police stopped being robust enough to deter it. Read that again. The people who actually police these streets are telling you this was foreseeable, preventable, and ignored. Every time a mob seizes a town centre and walks away with 3 arrests out of 300, every other teenager in the country watches and learns the same lesson. There are no consequences. So the next city is already being chosen. The only question is which one is next. Reason number 3, the mask itself has become a uniform of impunity, and the law can barely touch it. Why the balaclavas? Because anonymity is power, and these mobs know it. A mask means no facial recognition, no identification, no consequence. Councils across the country have figured this out, and they're scrambling to respond on their own. In Nottingham, the council leader is openly considering banning balaclavas under a new public spaces order, after the city was branded the 7th most dangerous place to live outside London. She put it bluntly, it's 32 degrees and people are wearing balaclavas on e-bikes, and that's not about the weather, it's about hiding. In Darlington, police logged around 800 antisocial behaviour reports in the town centre over a single summer, with 100 incidents where balaclavas were specifically flagged. Surrey's Spelthorne Council has already brought in a face-covering ban carrying a £100 fine, or up to £1,000 in court. Basildon in Essex opened a consultation on the same. Liverpool's city centre is going through its own version. Here's what should chill you about that list. Every single one of these is a local council, acting alone, improvising a patchwork response town by town, because there is no national strategy coming down from above. The mask is a national problem. The response is a postcode lottery. Reason number 4. When these masked mobs turn violent, they don't loot shops, they burn people out of their homes. If you think this is just teenagers nicking trainers, look at what happened across the UK in the second week of June 2026. After a knife attack in North Belfast, masked crowds set fire to homes and migrant-owned businesses, forcing families to flee. Around 200 households were evacuated. A 2-month-old baby was among those rescued. Over the course of the disorder, 12 police officers were injured, and arrests were made night after night. The Northern Ireland Secretary described masked thugs trying to burn and intimidate people out of their homes. And it didn't stay contained. Sympathy protests spread to the British mainland, with hundreds of masked demonstrators marching through Glasgow city centre, and more in Edinburgh and London, where protesters briefly blocked Parliament Square. This is the same mask, the same anonymity, the same playbook, scaled up from shoplifting to arson and racial intimidation. The thread connecting the looting in Clapham and the burning in Belfast is identical. A covered face, a crowd large enough to feel untouchable, and the dead certainty that the state will arrive too late and do too little. When a mob believes it can act without being identified, the only thing that limits how far it goes is its own appetite. And right now, that appetite is growing. Reason number 5. The police are reduced to managing the chaos, not preventing it. And the mobs know exactly where the line is. Look at the actual tools being used. Dispersal orders. A dispersal order doesn't prevent a mob, it just gives officers the power to tell people to leave once the mob has already formed and the damage is already being done. In Milton Keynes, the order came at 7:26 in the evening, after the crowd had already swelled. In Clapham, a Section 35 dispersal order went out while shops were already shuttering. By the time the state responds, the high street has already been seized. And then what? 3 arrests, brief detentions, 1 individual taken into custody and then released. Here's where it gets darker. The deterrent doesn't exist. These are children and young people who have learned, through repetition, that the worst-case outcome of seizing a town centre is being told to go home. Police chiefs and former detectives keep saying the same thing in different words. Offenders simply aren't afraid anymore. They plan it, they execute it, they disperse, and they do it again in the next town. When the entire enforcement model is built around reacting to a mob that's already arrived rather than stopping it from forming, you are not policing the streets. You are cleaning up after them. And every clean-up without consequence is an advertisement for the next one. Reason number 6. And this is the one Westminster doesn't want said out loud. While councils improvise and police react, the government at the very top is paralysed, distracted, and effectively absent on a national plan. Here is the uncomfortable truth about where the leadership is. As mask mobs were seizing city centres through the spring of 2026, the governing party was consumed by an internal war. By mid-May, over 95 Labour MPs had called on Keir Starmer to resign or set out a departure date. A cabinet minister and several junior ministers walked out. The Prime Minister's net approval had collapsed to around -46% by late 2025, ranking him among the most unpopular leaders in modern British history. Now, to be fair and accurate, Starmer has not been literally silent on every flashpoint. On the Belfast violence, he condemned the attacks and said those responsible would feel the full force of the law. Back in 2024, he promised a new national capability to tackle disorder. But that's exactly the point. Words after the fact are not a strategy before it. There is no national plan for the link-up mobs, no national framework on face coverings, leaving every council to fight alone. No coordinated answer to a phenomenon that is, by now, completely predictable. A government fighting for its own survival has nothing left over to fight for the high street. The leadership isn't silent because it has nothing to say. It's silent because it's drowning. So here's where we stand in June 2026. Mobs of masked teenagers can summon themselves on social media and seize a London high street in hours, twice in a week. The contagion has already jumped from Clapham to Milton Keynes to Birmingham and beyond. Balaclavas have become a uniform of impunity, and councils from Nottingham to Surrey to Liverpool are scrambling to ban them one town at a time because no one above them will act. The same masked playbook has escalated from looting shops to burning families out of their homes in Belfast, with the violence spilling onto the streets of Glasgow and London. Police are reduced to issuing dispersal orders after the damage is done, handing out a handful of arrests that deter no one. And at the top, a government tearing itself apart over its own leader has left a vacuum where a national response should be. Starmer promised to feel collars and restore order. He talks about the full force of the law. But fine words mean nothing when 100 masked teenagers can shut down a high street and walk away, when families are being evacuated from their own homes, when councils are left to write their own rules because Downing Street is too busy surviving to govern. So here is the question every British family deserves an answer to. How many more high streets have to be seized before this is treated as a national emergency instead of a local nuisance? How many more families have to be burned out of their homes before a mask in a mob is treated as the threat it is? And how many more times do these mobs have to win in plain sight before the people in charge stop managing the chaos and actually end it? Because right now the masks are winning, the high street is losing, and Britain's leaders are looking the other way.